actually failed my medical just before I went on Virgin Voyages in December. Hey sailors, welcome back to Cruising as Crew. My name is Lucy and today we are doing a cruise ship Q&A. So a few weeks ago I asked you on Instagram to submit any of your cruise ship questions and you did, so thank you very much, because today we're going to be answering those questions. But before we start, please press like and subscribe for more cruise ship content, and if you have any video suggestions or questions you can leave them in the comments down below, or you can DM me over on Instagram at Cruising as Crew. But as for now, let's get into this video. So the first question, can you join a cruise ship with your friend? It's definitely possible if you both request the same ship at the same time, but I always say this when like couples, like romantic couples say, can we go on the same ship together? There has to be a job for both of you at the same time. Let's say your friend is a waitress and you are a spa therapist. Both of those jobs obviously have to be available for you to get the same ship. Now with romantic relationships, you can actually fill in a form to try and get a ship together, and they will actively try and find a ship with both of your job roles on board so that you can be together. However, with friends, there isn't a form that you can fill out. The cruise ship is not going to actively look for a ship that you can be on together. So really, your best chance at getting on a ship with your friend is to apply for the same ships at the same times with the same joining dates, and just hope that there is a job for both of you on board for when you want to go on board. So the answer to that one is, if you're lucky. Can you cruise for a discounted rate if you are a crew member? The answer to this is yes. If you are a crew member, you do get discounts on cruise prices, and the discount will depend on what company you work for. And also, if you end up making friends with someone who is, say, a manager or has a single cabin, people with single cabins are allowed to bring family and friends on board to cruise for a discount, like a significantly discounted rate. So if you've got friends in the right places, you can get a significantly discounted cruise, but also for just being a crew member, you will get a discount on the cruise. Is it better to work on a cruise ship that is targeted towards families or adults? Adults, I'm gonna have to say, especially if you work in a sales department, so bars, casinos, spa, shops, art department, where you have to hit a target, because your company is going to come up with your cruise target based on the amount of people that are going to be cruising. So if the company can see that, okay, on this cruise to come, we're going to have 1,000 people cruising. So if each person that's cruising spends £50, that's going to be £50,000. So we'll set their target at £50,000. However, if 500 of those cruisers are children, well, children are not going to spend £50. So that means that the 500 adults are going to have to spend £100. So you are less likely to hit your target. Now that target is obviously completely hypothetical. So if you are on a cruise that has only adults on board, it's going to be a lot easier for you to hit target. Now, if we're not speaking from a sales point of view and just generally, it doesn't really matter. It's nice when it's adults only. There's definitely a more relaxed vibe. However, when the kids are on board, it's fun. So the only real difference it makes is to targets. Are you allowed to purchase things from the shops on board? Absolutely, you're definitely allowed to purchase things from the shops on board, and as a crew member you will get a discount. This again depends on what cruise line you work for, but whatever company, you definitely will be able to purchase anything you want from the shops on board. Actually, the only thing that you are not allowed to purchase is alcohol from the shops, but perfume, sweets, watches, any kind of jewellery, bags, clothes, you can purchase from the shops on board. Now on some ships, certain crew members do not have guest privileges, which means they are not allowed in passenger areas, which is of course where the shops are. So if you're worried about it from that point of view, well, firstly, there are going to be crew nights where the crew are allowed to come up to the shops and get what they want, but also quite often the shops department will do crew sales. So they will take a large collection of their products downstairs into the crew areas and will do basically a crew sale. So whatever department you work in, you will absolutely get the opportunity to get whatever you want from the shops at some point. Do you sleep well on the ship? Me personally, yes, I love sleeping on the ship, especially if you are in the right direction to the waves and then you kind of get rocked to sleep. But this is quite a personal question. and it will just depend on you, how you deal with being rocked to sleep. It's probably going to feel a bit odd when you first get on board. You'll sleep like the dead because you'll be working so hard that as soon as your head hits the pillow, you'll go straight to sleep. So I don't think being able to sleep on a ship is something that you really need to worry about. You will definitely sleep. The only reason you wouldn't sleep is if you have a roommate that snores. So definitely take some earplugs with you when you go on board, just in case. How long does it take from applying for the job online to actually getting on board a cruise ship? Well, after you apply online, it usually takes like 2 to 3 weeks for you to hear back. Then you have to schedule your interview. After you've had your interview, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks for you to hear whether you've got the job or not. Then you have to organise getting your medical, your visas, any injections you might need, for STCW, any training that you might need to do for the job you're going to do on board, and possibly a police background check. So there are a lot of things that you need to do before getting on board, and all of these things take time, especially if you've got to get a C1D visa, an Australian visa, and a Schengen visa. They're never quick. And then for the medical, you've obviously got to find a practice that will do the medical that you need, and they've got to have the availability to fit you in. And then even when you've got all of that done, you have to wait for a space to be open on board a cruise ship. Because what these cruise lines do is they hire so many of one position so that they've always got someone they can call on if someone goes home sick or they finish their contract. You might be employed as a receptionist at a time where there isn't actually any availability for a receptionist on board a cruise ship. Now, this could be immediately after you've got all your paperwork together, or it could be a few months after you've got all your paperwork together. But on average, I'm going to say about 6 months. The majority of people that I have spoke to about their journey about getting on board cruise ships, it's taken them about 5 to 6 months to get on board, from applying to stepping foot on board their first cruise ship. How do you organise your second contract on a cruise ship? Right, well, there are 2 ways that you can do this. You can either do it at the end of your contract or when you go on vacation. If you do it at the end of your contract, literally a month before you go home, you'll be given a form where you fill in all your personal details and you put the ships that you would like to go on in order. So your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice. You're then going to hand this back to your manager. Your manager's going to send it to head office, and head office are going to look at what is available. Now, they're going to try and give you your first choice. However, if you finish your contract in March and you say that you would like to start your second contract in May, and you've got Oasis of the Seas as your first choice and Allure as your second choice, they might have a position for you in May on Allure of the Seas. However, if you really want to go on Oasis, you're going to have to wait till September. So that's why you have to give 3 choices, because it's all logistical. There has to obviously be an opening on the ship that you want to go on. And the majority of the time, you're going to have this correspondence through your manager with head office, and you're going to have your second contract organised before you even leave your first. Now, the alternative is to do this when you get home. The same principle applies. You're going to fill in all your details and you're going to give them your 3 top choices for the ships. However, because you are at home, I don't know why, but you basically become less of a priority. So if you can, I would strongly encourage you to organise your second contract before you get off your first. Even if you're not sure that you want to do a second contract, organise it before you get on, because it's so much easier to say, I don't want to come back, than not organise it, decide you want to come back, and then have to do it when you get home, because it does take so much longer for you to get a ship when you're at home. Does anyone fail their medical, and why? Yes, people fail their medical for multiple reasons, and I'm not going to go through them because, quite frankly, I don't know them all. I'm not a doctor. But if you do fail your medical, then you are unable to work on a cruise ship. However, I actually failed my medical just before I went on Virgin Voyages in December 2019. I failed because my iron levels were too low. And I, like everyone else who fails, was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to go on board. But they were very good, and they just said, look, you've got time before you go on your cruise ship, so you need to get your iron levels up, and then we're going to retake your bloods in a few weeks. And if you pass the iron test, then that's fine. So went home, ate lots of spinach, took a few supplements, and sure enough, in a few weeks, I did another blood test and my iron levels were absolutely fine. So if you do have a medical and you fail it because maybe you're overweight, underweight, iron levels, 9 times out of 10, they are going to give you a solution. They're going to send you away and say, you need to gain weight, you need to lose weight, you need to change this. And they're going to retest you in a few weeks and you will pass and then be able to go on board the cruise ship. So trust me when I say having your medical is really nothing to stress about. Firstly, the process is so easy. It's really not invasive or, you know, it's a lot simpler than you would think. And it's really hard to fail. And if you do fail, they're going to tell you what you need to do in order to pass it. So the reason that you can't go on a cruise ship is very rarely going to be because you failed your medical. And I've had a few messages from people saying, oh, I'm really stressed about my medical. Don't. It isn't worth stressing about because you'll pass it probably. And if you don't pass it, you'll pass it in a few weeks. So don't stress. It's fine. How do you stay happy and stress-free when you're having bad days on board? This is a good question. So as I've said, working on cruise ships, it's like a bubble. So it is easy to let things get on top of you. However, through experience, I'm now able to calm myself down by simply putting things in perspective. So for example, if I'm really stressed about potentially not hitting a certain target, I have to remind myself that it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get fired if I don't hit the target. No one's going to yell at me. You know, if they can see that I'm trying my best, the world isn't going to end. I'm still going to have somewhere to live and food in my belly. Like, it really doesn't matter. And to be honest, that's what I owe a lot of my happiness and calmness to, is being able to put things in perspective and just find the positive. And I'm a huge fan of looking at like the worst case scenario. So back to the target. Okay, if I don't hit my target, what's the absolute worst that's going to happen? Realistically, my manager's going to be really, really annoyed with me. But he still can't fire me. He can't starve me or take me out my cabin or make me walk the plank. So I'll have a few bad days. That's like the worst case scenario. It's not even going to happen. So I think if ever you find yourself feeling like really stressed out about something, look at the worst case scenario, because 9 times out of 10, the worst case scenario really isn't that bad. Do you think it's harder to get a job after COVID? You know what? I think it's easier. The reason being, obviously, when COVID hit, all the crew members on every single cruise ship got sent home. And we have been home for a year and a bit now. A lot of those crew members have had to get jobs at home and are now not planning on going back to cruise ships because they've established themselves here on land. But these cruise lines still have massive cruise ships that they need to fill with employees. So I know for a fact that cruise lines and lots of agencies are hiring now because they need to make sure that they can fill all these cruise ships with employees when it comes time to launch. But that 6 months that I was talking about earlier, you know, from applying to actually getting on board the ship, that's definitely going to apply, because what these cruise lines are doing is they're launching like 1 or 2 cruise ships, and if that all goes well and everyone stays COVID free, then they're going to roll out the other ships. So if you apply now and get the job now, they might be looking at putting you on a ship that they're not actually going to launch for another like 6 to 8 months. So definitely don't quit your day job yet, but yeah, you should start applying for cruise ships now because there's a massive drive for new employees. Do you find it hard to eat healthy when you are on board? No, it's really easy to eat healthy because there's always a healthy option wherever you go. However, yes, it's hard to eat healthy because you've also got the chocolate cake and the pasta and the bread, and you know, you're in a hotel, the food's amazing. So there are some days where I eat healthy and there's some days where I don't eat so healthy, but you will always find a healthy option when you are on board. It's just if you have the willpower to stay away from the not so healthy options. What is a bad habit that you picked up while working on board cruise ships? Coffee. I drink an obscene amount of coffee, not because I need it to stay awake, just because I enjoy it. And I think it's a habit. I get into a habit of like having my coffee cup and sitting outside on the deck with a coffee. It's just ridiculous. It's definitely a bad habit that I get into like every ship that I go on. I would like to think that when I go back I'll be better, but I'm not going to make any promises. What is the perfect age to start working on cruise ships? Oh, I like this question. Okay, the perfect age. So as a lot of you know, I started at 19. I was not allowed to drink alcohol. Because I was on an American ship that abided by American laws, you have to be 21 to drink alcohol. Now, this wasn't like a huge deal. I'm not, you know, a raging alcoholic. I don't need to drink. You can drink at 18 in the UK, and most of us start when we're 15. So if you are like 18, 19, and you do like a drink, you need to know that if you're going to start working on cruise ships before you're 21 and you end up on an American cruise line like Carnival US, Royal Caribbean, you will not be able to have an alcoholic drink. It's just something to be aware of. You know, 6 to 9 months is a long time to not have a drink. So for that reason, I'm going to say 21 for the fact that you are allowed to do everything. And also, there's a huge difference between 18 and 21. You know, you mature so much in those years, and also it gives you a chance to get experience either in a hotel or doing the job that you're going to do when you get on board the cruise ship. And I had a year's work experience between college and joining a cruise ship. Now, I don't regret it. I've turned out fine. It was all good. However, I do think it would have been easier if I'd have had more work experience before I went on board. Now, I made a video basically saying that you can be any age to work on cruise ships. And I stand by that, 100% stand by that. You can be 30, 40, 60, 70. But it's a lot easier to do it when you are young. One, because you're working a lot, you need as much energy as you can, and you have the most energy when you are young. You probably don't have kids, and it's a lot easier to work away from home to 6 to 9 months when you don't have children. It's a lot easier if you don't have to leave your husband and your wife. Now, I'm aware that there's a lot of cultures that this is completely normal to leave their kids at home while they work and earn the money. But for more developed countries, we tend to raise the kids, and if we get married, stay at home and be with our spouse. And of course, it is doable. You absolutely can work on a cruise ship if you are married and have kids and a house, but it's easier if you do it before you get all of this. So you can work on a ship when you're 18, you can work on a ship when you're 68, but I would say the best age to do it is in your early 20s. Is there something you always have to wear? Your name badge. You always have to wear your name badge when you are on board. Obviously, if you're at work, you need to have your name badge on, but also when you are not at work in passenger areas. So let's say you go up to the breakfast buffet where the passengers eat, even if you're in like your normal clothes, you have to have your name badge on. On some cruise lines, you even have to have your name badge on in crew areas if you go to crew bar. So yeah, you always have to have your name badge on. So actually, something that I always do now is when you get on board a cruise ship, they give you your name badge. But a few days later, I always go to crew office and say, oh, I've lost my name badge. Can you print me another one so that I have two? So this means if I do actually lose my name badge, I have a spare, so I'm not going to get in trouble for not having it on. And you might be thinking, well, why don't you just get another name badge when you actually lose your name badge? Well, if you lose your name badge and the crew office is closed, so they can't print you another name badge, but you have to go to work, you're going to get in trouble for not wearing your name badge. So it's always worth just having a spare, because you're not going to lose it at the best time. It's probably going to be at the most inconvenient time possible. Same with your cabin key. You are definitely going to lose your cabin key when the crew office is closed and they can't print you another one. Now, unfortunately, you can't have two of those, but you know, it just always happens at the most rubbish time. After doing so many contracts, have your priorities changed? Is there something you care more about now than you did on your first contract, and something you care less about now than you did on your first contract? So something I care more about now, definitely safety procedures. So I probably shouldn't say this, but on my first and second contract, I did them because I was told to do them. But I didn't fully understand what my safety role was, and I just didn't really pay much attention, and thank God, you know, nothing's ever happened. Whereas now, after doing it for years and years and years, I understand obviously how vital it is. So now, like, when I get on board, I definitely take the time to understand my safety role thoroughly, know exactly what I'm there to do. I also take the time to understand the layout of the ship from a safety point of view. You know, if there's a fire here, then how do I get from A to B? Same with my cabin. Like, on my first contract, I found a route from my cabin to work, and that was the route I took every day. And then I remember one day it was blocked because an emergency door was closed, and I was late to work because I didn't take the time to find multiple ways from my cabin to get to work. And there always is. There has to be 2 exits from every single room and space. So now when I get on a ship, I take the time to figure out at least like 3 exits from my cabin to the mess, to work, so that if one day a watertight door is closed, I'm like, it's cool, I know that I can go this way. So safety procedures are definitely a big priority now, and I encourage everyone who is new to make it a priority. It's actually really important. And less of a priority would be caring what people think. I think this has come with age more than experience on ships. But as I've said, when I went on my first contract, I was really conscious of making friends and making sure people liked me, and, you know, I was like included. Whereas now, you know, obviously I want to make friends, I do want to be included, but it's not devastating now if I'm not. It's like, well, I'm here to do a job, and if I make friends, great. If I don't make friends, well, I've got some. So that has become less of a priority because the job has become more of a priority, which is why going back on Virgin and there being no shore leave, it's not really that big of a deal to me because I'm there for the job rather than, woo, to have a good time. Something you would invest in before you go on board. Well, I've made a few videos about, you know, things that I always take on board and you must take on board. But if there's like one thing that you should absolutely spend money on, it's gonna be shoes. You're going to be on your feet a lot. If you are responsible for getting your own work shoes, that's where you need to spend your money. Get some comfortable work shoes. It doesn't matter what they look like. No one cares. Just get the comfiest ones and start wearing them in before you get on board. And a universal adapter. You will use a universal adapter all the time. It's worth getting a good one. I mean, you don't have to spend loads. I mean, 20 to 25 pounds. You can get them on Amazon, but like, don't go for the £5 one because firstly you need to get one that is safe. It's not going to like spark or anything. So get a good universal adapter. But definitely the shoes are a big one. What would you tell 19-year-old Lucy today? Oh. So 19-year-old Lucy was just about to start my cruise ship career. I would say, don't sweat the small stuff. You are about to embark on the most amazing adventure. It's going to be so much more than you imagined. Don't sweat the small stuff because even the really low points are going to be great lessons and make funny stories. And just enjoy every second because it's the most incredible experience and you are so fortunate to be able to have it. Well, that is the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching and submitting your questions. There were some absolute bangers there. If you have enjoyed it, please press like and subscribe for more cruise ship content. And if you have any video suggestions or questions, you can leave them in the comments down below or DM me over on Instagram at Cruising as Crew. But thank you so much again, guys. I really appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.